That
Yeah.
would be amazing.
How was your time in Rishikesh? Sorry, you were saying something. Cut you off.
No. I was just saying that it would be my pleasure, and as soon as possible, I'll be back in India. My time in Rishikesh was interesting, because Rishikesh is kind of like it's a holy city, and so it's also a postcard in that it's the capital of yoga and stuff. And
Hmm.
it was my first time in India. It was my first month in India, and I came straight to Rishikesh to do a yoga teaching program,
Okay.
uh, which is I was aware that it was a thing that a lot of Westerners do, and
Yeah.
it's never been to do. And I have to say, you guys are amazing because you invent a discipline, then you outsource it to us, and then you like make a shit ton of money from from all the dumb hippie Western people. Like, oh, like teach me, and it works. But no, to tell you the truth, it was a little bit difficult at first because the school that I was going to go to, I found out 2 days before my flight, it had received a series of sexual misconduct accusations.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah,
Oh, that sucks.
and so yeah, and I was like, oh shoot, what? And it came from a friend, so I knew that it was legitimate, and also
Oh,
like that. It's a whole different topic. But I didn't want to go there. I didn't have a
yeah.
good, and so I decided to go to Rishikesh first anyway. But luckily I had a couple of days to go from school to school and to talk to different teachers, and I had a few good conversations with a school that I eventually went to, which is called Om Shanti Om. I met Yogi Dinesh, who is the kind of head yogi, and he is this really really fun figure. He's got like long curly hair, and he's about like 40, 45, but he's at the same time 505 years old.
Oh, is
But
he
he
one of those? I love that.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's a kid. He loves to have fun.
Yeah.
He really likes to have fun, and he told me, look, if you're feeling this, come. If you're not feeling this, don't come. Like, he wasn't trying to sell it to me. He
Perfect.
was just like, if it's meant to be, it will be. And I took a walk after this, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna come. And it was December, so it was quite cold. Rishikesh in December is 10 degrees outside, it's 10 degrees inside, and it's 10 degrees inside your body as well. So you're always 10 degrees. So we had to do a lot of asana, a lot of yoga to warm
Yeah.
ourselves up. But I met a really lovely bunch of people, two people, an American guy and a Ukrainian girl that are really, really close to me now. I spent a month with them, and another French girl, actually. I spent a month with them, and we went through the steps of very early yoga training together, and I think that leaves a mark. We discussed meditation, we practiced together, we did some fasting together, some breath work. I think that really ties people together, and
Yeah.
we're all very different people, but we're gathered around that thing. And then traveling again, I met two of them in Sri Lanka later on,
Nice,
and
nice.
yeah, I think they're friends for life now.
Yeah, of course, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like it's incredible because back in the day too, when we've been traveling, you meet so many great people. Uh, and then even though in those 2 days, you became best friends, as time passed by, you kind of lost touch with them. Then with this advent of technology, we got the Facebook and the Instagrams. We stayed in touch, kind of. But I'll be honest, this lockdown, if one thing it's done, is it's given
Mhm.
people a lot of free time. And I've noticed a lot of my old friends from my old travels, we've all gotten in touch again, which is beautiful. I
Yeah.
spoke to another friend of mine who I met my first travels ever. I met him in Rome. He's a Mexican guy who I'm going to have on this podcast very soon. And I hadn't spoken to him for 12 years. And yeah, and obviously on Facebook we'd say happy birthday, good on you, mate, stuff like that. But never like a nice long conversation. And we spoke after 12 years, and it was like yesterday. Like I remembered every detail of our time together,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
it's so beautiful, man. Tell me about this guy though, this yoga teacher. You said 500 years old. Did you mean that in a comical way, or did he actually say he was 5 years old? 500 years old. Sorry.
Well, so actually, he said something like he was talking to us, and he said, "You are 5 years old, and
Okay.
I am 500 years old." But he was smiling, and I thought, well, that's quite funny, but I don't think it's true. We are all, I'm 28. I'm 28 in every way,
Yeah.
and I should be 5 years old. It would be better. I would like to be 5 years old. I work for being 5 years old. But I thought, no, Dinesh, you're both 505 years old because you have wisdom, but you also don't really care that much. Like, you're very flexible mentally, like a child. If something bad happens, you're like, oh, it's okay. And there was a lot to learn from that. Like, actually, the image that I have of Dinesh is, usually when you think about a yogi, you think about something static, someone sitting in his position for hours. And the image that I have of Dinesh in my mind is one of movement, because I was taking a walk during lunch hours, so we weren't having any lessons. I was on the other side of town. I walked around for a while, and I see someone waving at me from a motorcycle that was going quite fast. And so it wasn't the driver; it was the guy at the back, and it was Dinesh dressed all in white with his crazy hair dancing in the wind, and he was like, "Hey!" just like riding by. And you could see that he was genuinely happy to see me, even though he didn't really know me.
Oh, he didn't know you then.
Like, I mean, he knew me, but he knew me in the way that he knows, the hundreds of students that
Okay.
visit him. And I really love that. And there was like something very like a real light in his eyes, and he was just having fun. And I think what he really was trying to teach us is to have fun with life, to be more open to it, to be more appreciative of it.
Isn't it a sign of emancipation, don't you think? I think what all of this is trying to teach you is basically emancipation. You're just uncluttering your mind, and you're unhinged from the taboos of society about how one is supposed to behave. If you are, for example, this guy was a guy who used to impart knowledge, and he's got so many students and people look up to him, so he should be a guy who's supposedly wise, so he should basically fit the mold of that yogi who's static and walks with a air of intellectual superiority. But he's the opposite, because he's got actual wisdom, and he's emancipated because he knows all of it doesn't matter. I always say this though, and I do practice it too. Like anybody else, we all have moments of anxiety or stress or whatever. And I try and tell myself, get primordial. When I say I get primordial, I mean all the stress that we have and all the anxiety that we have. And I mean, I'm not taking this away from people who actually have anxiety problems. I know that's a chemical thing, but from a point of view of like meeting deadlines or goofing up at your job or, anything, or even losing a relationship or everything, I just say, get primordial. Say, imagine if you were Neanderthal man and in the caves, and all you cared about was food, clothing, and shelter. And the only fear that you actually had was the fear of falling or being attacked by a wild animal. Those are the only two reasons to have anxiety or stress. Everything else is man-made. It's all past. It doesn't matter. It's a zero-sum game. It goes all to naught. So how somebody else thinks of you and how one thinks that you should live your life, it basically is immaterial, because it doesn't really make a difference to anybody, right? All that matters is how you think of yourself. I know it's very easy to say, and I'm sounding like I'm preaching like I'm a very intelligent man, but this is basically the basis of all the knowledge that we're trying to learn. That it's all transient. That's why your yogi, when he was waving out to you from the back of his bike, he didn't care, because, like he said, he's supposed to be your teacher, and you're supposed to look up to him and say, "Teach me, Guruji, teach me, make me wise, and make me reach nirvana and moksha." And he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" So,
Exactly.
he's a little kid, and like you said, you are 28. You want to be 5, because when you're 5, you don't really care. You just be. You don't care of how people look at you. So India is a place to find all of that, though. It will teach you that. I tell you, India, it affects people in different ways, don't you think? A lot of people when they say they find themselves from a philosophical point of view of how we just spoke. And the other is they get reminded of how grateful they should be about everything they have. Because even me, like, I'll sit and crib about everything I don't have and then one day you sit and count the things you do have, and then you're like, what am I cribbing about, man? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you do this, but I've started practicing gratitude, and I write my book every night or every morning. I just write a whole bunch of things that I'm grateful for, and
Awesome.
there's so many, man. Especially in this COVID time, man. This time, especially if it can teach you something, is you should be so grateful for what you have, because my biggest complaint during the 5 months of lockdown that I was in is boredom. Can you imagine that? Just plain boredom. That's not really, it's not a problem, dude. That's like, oh, I'm tired of, yeah, oh, I want to eat something from a restaurant. I want to order a pizza. Oh, I'm tired of watching Netflix. Oh, that's not a problem, dude. A problem is when you can't feed yourself, like the millions and millions of people in India during COVID. Those are real problems.